My daughter set the folder on my kitchen table and told me the lake house was trying to kill someone. Those weren't her exact words. Vanessa is too polished for that. What she actually said, sliding a stack of papers toward me, was that the cabin had become a serious liability, that the foundation was going, that the dock was one storm from collapse, and that if a guest ever got hurt out there, I could lose everything. She had estimates. She had a deed for me to sign, just to let her handle it all, so I wouldn't have to worry. I am 66 years old. I worked 30 years in a library, and if there is one thing a librarian learns, it is how to notice when a detail doesn't belong. Because one of those contractor estimates had a date on it. And the date was last Thursday. And last Thursday I had been standing on that very dock, watching the water, and the dock had been solid as a church pew. I didn't say anything. I just looked at that date and felt something go quiet and cold inside me. "Mom?" Vanessa said. "You're drifting again." I wasn't drifting. I was paying attention for the first time in months. "Let me tell you about the lake house, because you can't understand any of this without it. My husband Tom built it with his own hands over 6 summers on a little inlet called Birch Hollow. He was a high school shop teacher, not a rich man, but he could make anything out of wood and patience. We raised our 2 kids there in July and August, swimming until our lips went blue, eating sandwiches with sand in them. When Tom's lungs finally gave out 4 winters ago, we took him back to Birch Hollow one last time, and we let him go into the water he loved. So the lake house is not a property to me. It is the last room in the world that still has Tom in it. My daughter Vanessa knows that. That's the part one keep coming back to. She knows. She lives 2 hours away in a big house she can't quite afford, with a renovation business that she always describes as about to turn the corner. My son Daniel moved to Oregon years ago and calls on Sundays. And my grandson Theo, Vanessa's boy, is 24 and the only one who still asks me to tell stories about his grandfather. After Tom died, Vanessa started handling things. The taxes, the insurance, the little repairs. I let her. Grief makes you grateful for anyone willing to carry the bags. I see now that I handed her the keys to my life one small kindness at a time. The first thing that felt wrong was how fast she wanted me to sign. "Just initial here, and sign at the back," she said that morning, tapping the deed with a manicured nail. "It's only so I can deal with contractors without dragging you out there for every little thing." "I don't mind going out there," I said. Something flickered across her face. "Mom, it's not safe. That's the whole point. I don't want you walking around a building that could come down." I told her I'd like to read everything first. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes, and she gathered the papers a little too quickly and said she'd leave them with me to look over. That afternoon I went to find the spare key to the lake house, the one that lives on a brass hook by my back door. It wasn't there. I called Vanessa. She said, "Oh, she must have taken it by accident, she'd bring it next time, no rush." Her voice was light. Too light. A missing key is a small thing. But Tom used to say that when a small thing makes your stomach drop, you should listen to your stomach, not your manners. So I listened. That evening my neighbor from the lake, Linda, called me. "We've shared that inlet for 30 years. She said, "Maggie, I don't want to worry you, but there's been a man out here. Suit, clipboard. He was walking your lot with one of those measuring wheels. Spent an hour at it. A man in a suit. Measuring my husband's land." "Did Vanessa send him?" I asked. "I don't know," Linda said. "But honey, he wasn't measuring anything that's falling down." I didn't sleep. The next morning I got in my car and I drove the 90 minutes to Birch Hollow myself, because I needed to see it with my own eyes. The lake house stood exactly where Tom left it. The cedar siding was weathered but sound. The porch didn't sag. And the dock, the supposedly dying dock, had fresh boards in it. Someone had repaired it recently. Repaired it, not condemned it. Then I saw the thing that made no sense at all. There was a lockbox hanging on the front door. One of those little gray realtor boxes that hold a key inside, the kind you only put on a house that is being shown to buyers. I stood there in the cold with my hand on Tom's railing, and I tried to make the pieces fit. A house too dangerous for me to enter. A house with a freshly repaired dock. A house with a realtor's lockbox on the door and a man in a suit measuring the land. None of it matched the story I'd been told. All of it matched a different story I didn't want to think about. I took out my phone, the one Theo taught me to use, and I photographed the lockbox. I photographed the new boards on the dock. I photographed the solid foundation Vanessa swore was crumbling. My hands were steady. I was surprised by how steady they were. Then I called Linda and asked her to tell me everything she remembered about the man with the clipboard. Linda met me at the end of the gravel road with coffee in a thermos, the way she's met me for 30 years. He had a logo on his jacket, she said. And on the clipboard. Something with a pine tree. Summit something. Summit Shore. Summit Ridge Development, that was it. I remember thinking it sounded like a ski resort. That afternoon I sat at Linda's kitchen table and we looked it up. Summit Ridge Development. They did not fix old family cabins. They bought lakefront land, tore down whatever stood on it, and built clusters of rental condos. They didn't want Tom's house. They wanted the dirt it stood on, and the water in front of it. I drove home with my mind running. That night I called Theo, because Theo is good with computers and because Theo, of all of them, loves that house almost as much as I do. I told him everything. The estimates. The date that didn't match. The missing key. The lockbox. Summit Ridge. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Grandma, give me a day. There are public records for this stuff. If there's an offer on the property, we can probably find it." "Is that legal, what you'd be doing?" "It's all public," he said. "People just don't look. People just don't look." I thought about how true that was. How much had happened, right in front of me, because I trusted instead of looked. Theo called back the next evening, and his voice had changed. "Grandma, I found it. There's an active purchase offer on the Birch Hollow property. Summit Ridge Development. $480,000. I had to sit down. $480,000. For the house Vanessa had spent a month calling worthless, dangerous, a liability, a teardown. "That's not all," Theo said, and he sounded almost sick. "The offer letter. It's not addressed to you. It's addressed to Mom. Like she's the one who owns it. Like she's the one selling it." The kitchen went very still around me. My daughter had told me the house was falling apart. My daughter had taken my key. My daughter had hidden a developer's offer for nearly $500,000. And my daughter was named on that offer as if the house were already hers to sell. I wanted, more than anything, for there to be an innocent explanation. A mother's heart will build a bridge out of nothing to keep from seeing what's on the other side. But the number sat there. 480,000. And the number did not care about my heart. I kept the secret for 3 days, and those 3 days nearly broke me. You have to understand what that's like. You make your daughter's coffee the way she likes it, 2 sugars, and you hand it to her, and you smile, and the whole time there's a $480,000 lie sitting between you on the table like a third person in the room. I almost told her a dozen times. I almost begged her to take it back, to say there'd been a mistake. But Tom's voice was in my head. Slow down, Maggie. See the whole thing before you move. So I watched, and I learned. I learned that Vanessa now answered her phone in the other room with her back to me. One afternoon I heard her voice come up sharp through the door, the way it does when she's frightened. I told you, I'll have it by the end of the month. The end of the month. When she came back in, she was bright and easy again, and she told me the house really did need to be dealt with soon, for my sake. By the end of the month. That was the closing date Mr. Reyes would later show me. She wasn't selling Tom's house to protect me. She was selling it to make a payment, and the clock she was racing wasn't the county's. It was a collector's. That was the night I stopped feeling sorry and started getting ready. Vanessa came back that Saturday with the deed, and this time she had stopped pretending to be patient. Mom, I really need you to sign this, she said, before she'd even taken off her coat. The county's been out there. If we don't get ahead of it, they could condemn the structure, and then you get nothing. Do you understand? Nothing. I'm trying to protect you. Who repaired the dock? I asked. She blinked. What? The dock. You told me it was about to collapse. Someone put new boards in it. Who? For just a second, the smooth surface cracked, and underneath it I saw something scrambling. Then she smoothed it over. I had someone shore it up so it wouldn't be a hazard while we sort this out. Mom, you're getting confused about the timeline. This is exactly why you shouldn't be managing property anymore. There it was. The same move my own mother's friends used to warn each other about. Make her doubt her memory, and she'll hand you the pen. I'm not confused, Vanessa, I said quietly. I'm the opposite of confused. She didn't know yet how much I'd seen. So she pushed the deed an inch closer, and she smiled the smile that no longer worked on me, and she said, just sign, Mom. Trust me. Trust me. The two words that had cost me my key, my certainty, and very nearly Tom's house. I didn't sign. I told her I needed a few more days, and she left angry, and the moment her car was gone I spread those contractor estimates across my kitchen table and I read them the way I used to read disputed library invoices, line by line. The estimates all came from a single company. Hollow Creek Restoration. I had never heard of it. So Theo looked it up, and what he found made the floor tilt under me. Hollow Creek Restoration was registered to Vanessa. It was the shell of her own failed renovation business, the one that was always about to turn the corner. She had written the estimates herself. She had invented a collapsing house and signed off on it under a company name she controlled. The damage to the lake house wasn't real. The danger wasn't real. The whole crumbling, condemned, deadly cabin existed only on paper that my daughter had typed. She hadn't simply decided to sell my house behind my back. She had manufactured an emergency, a fake crisis with fake numbers, so that selling it would feel like rescue instead of theft. I sat with that for a long time. The clock ticked. The coffee went cold. And somewhere in that long quiet, the grief I'd been carrying since Tom died turned into something harder and clearer. I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. Mr. Reyes was a real estate attorney Linda's nephew had recommended. He had a small office with a coffee stain on the carpet and a way of reading documents that made me feel, for the first time in weeks, like the competent woman I used to be. I gave him everything. The deed. The fake estimates. The Summit Ridge offer Theo had pulled. The photographs of the lockbox and the new dock. He read for a long time. Then he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Mrs. Hale, I'm going to be direct with you, because you strike me as someone who'd rather have the truth. This document she wants you to sign is a quitclaim deed. If you signed it, you would be giving her the lake house outright. Gone. And these estimates, presented to you to scare you into signing, from a company she owns, that's fraudulent inducement. That's not a gray area. There's more, isn't there? I said. I can see it on your face. He nodded slowly. There is. I pulled the listing on Summit Ridge's side. The property is already under a signed listing agreement. Your daughter signed it. And she signed it as your attorney in fact. He looked up. Mrs. Hale, did you ever grant your daughter power of attorney? No, I said. My voice came out very small. I never signed anything like that. Then we have a forged power of attorney, he said gently, and a closing date. He turned a page. 9 days from now. 9 days. In 9 days, a stranger's company would have owned the water where I let my husband go. I chose to face her myself. Mr. Reyes advised against it, said let the lawyers handle it, said don't tip your hand. But I needed to stand in front of my daughter in the house she tried to steal and watch what her face did. I asked her to meet me at Birch Hollow. I think she believed I was finally coming around to sign. She arrived in heels that sank into the gravel, and she found me sitting on the repaired dock, the Summit Ridge offer letter in my hand. She saw the letter. She stopped walking. Mom, $480,000, I said. For the house that's about to kill someone. For the worthless teardown. Tell me about Hollow Creek Restoration, Vanessa. Tell me whose company it is. She tried denial first. She said I didn't understand, that I'd gotten things mixed up, that Theo had filled my head with nonsense. I let her talk. I had learned, by then, that a person who's been caught will keep reaching for the old story long after it stopped holding water. Then she tried deflection. The business was drowning. The bank was calling. She had children, a mortgage, a life, and I had a cabin I visited 4 times a year. Didn't she deserve some of it? Wasn't she going to inherit it anyway? And then, finally, the surface broke for good, and my polished daughter sat down on Tom's dock in her ruined heels and put her face in her hands. I was going to tell you, she whispered. After. When it was done. I was going to give you half. You forged my name, I said. You told me I was losing my mind. You put a lockbox on your father's front door. She didn't answer. There isn't an answer to that. We sat on that dock for a long time without speaking, my daughter and I, while the lake went flat and silver in the evening light. I kept waiting to feel triumphant. I had caught her. I had every document, every photograph, every record. I had won. But there is no winning, when it's your own child. I looked at her ruined heels and her wet face, and I remembered teaching her to swim off this exact dock, her small arms around my neck, her absolute certainty that I would not let her sink. She had been so sure of me once. And somewhere between then and now she had become a woman who could forge my name and call it love. Why didn't you just ask me? I finally said. If you were drowning, Vanessa, why didn't you come to me? She looked at the water. Because you would have given it to me, she said. And then I'd have to know I took your house from you. This way I could pretend it was business. That was the truest thing she said all day. It was easier for her to steal it than to be given it, because a gift would have made her face what she'd become. I have thought about that answer many times since. It is the saddest thing I know about my own daughter. I didn't decide everything in that moment. Real life doesn't resolve on a dock at sunset. But the important things, the things that couldn't wait, were already in motion. Mr. Reyes had moved the day before. The forged power of attorney was reported and voided. The listing agreement, signed under a forgery, was cancelled. When Summit Ridge's people learned the seller had no authority to sell, they withdrew the offer within 48 hours. Developers do not like the smell of a lawsuit. The lake house was never theirs. It had never stopped being mine. The harder choices were the family ones, and those I made slowly, in my own time. I did not send my daughter to prison, though Mr. Reyes told me plainly that I could have. She was still the little girl who used to fall asleep on Tom's shoulder on this dock. So instead we sat down with lawyers and made it real and binding, full honesty about her debts, a repayment plan for the money she'd already spent staging the fraud, counseling, and absolutely no role in my finances or my property, ever again. And I did one more thing. I put the lake house into a trust. Not in Vanessa's name. In Theo's, as its steward, the grandson who drove 2 hours to pull records because he loved the place enough to look. Vanessa wept when she heard. I let her weep. Some consequences you cannot soften without erasing them, and this one needed to stand. Justice, I have learned, is not a thing you celebrate. It's just a fact you finally allow to be true. It's summer again at Birch Hollow. The dock Vanessa repaired to fool a buyer turned out to be good work, which is almost funny. I sit on it most evenings now with a cup of tea, watching the light go gold and then gray on the water. Theo comes up on weekends. He's learning to fix the things Tom used to fix, and he asks me which board his grandfather laid first, and I tell him, and the house stays full of Tom that way. Linda still brings coffee in a thermos. Mr. Reyes sends a card at Christmas. My son Daniel flew out when he heard, and held me longer than he has since he was a boy. Vanessa and I speak. Not often, and not easily. The payments come, small and on time, and once in a while there is a phone call that doesn't end in tears. I don't know if I've forgiven her. I've stopped believing forgiveness is the only way to set a thing down. Peace is its own road, and I found mine on this dock, alone, with the water Tom rests in. People ask me why I kept the lake house at all, after everything it cost me. A house is just wood, they say. You could have taken the money. But I think of last Thursday, the first Thursday, when I stood on a dock I'd been told was dying and felt it hold my weight without so much as a creak. Everyone told me it was falling apart. I trusted my own 2 feet instead. I'm 66 years old. My memory is fine. My footing is sure. And the next time someone I love tells me that something solid is falling apart, I'll go and stand on it myself before I believe them.